I know you guys are probably expecting title belts and cigars and sunglasses and jackets today, but unfortunately I have to tell you that's not gonna happen. Last week we had our fun with Miami. We basically stole their entire season out from underneath them. Any fan base in our position would have done the same thing, but now that we're in the playoffs and we've gotten a playoff win, time to act like we've been here before, because we have. At this point, the nerves are only going to get higher, and at this point, if we lose, it is only going to hurt more as the weeks go. Mafia, stay humble. Do not forget who we are. Anyway, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to my wild card reactions. Now, we only have 6 games to react to, however, we have a ton to talk about, so before we hop right into this video, we gotta go through my plugs as always, so don't forget to use code WyattzWorld on G Fuel or Prize Picks, where you can save yourself a discount on any G Fuel products or match up to $100 of your first deposit. But that's all I got. Let's get into my reactions. Alright, so starting off wildcard weekend, we had the Texans blowing the Browns to bits. Dude, what a game by CJ Stroud, what a game by Nico Collins, what a game by Brevin Jordan, and what a terrible game by Joe Flacco. Say it ain't so, Joe, but I think the Linsanity run came to an end. It's either that or he still works for Baltimore undercover. Looking at the Browns first, Flacco was 34 for 46, 307 and 1 touchdown, but he did have 2 pick sixes. Looking at the run game, they did absolutely nothing outside of Kareem's early touchdown. And receiving was led by David Njoku, who continues to be a bad man. But other than, again, Kareem Hunt, who had 5 catches for 9 yards, nobody else was able to have a touchdown. Also, I don't mean to poke fun at you, Cleveland, and I do know how good Myles Garrett is, but you needed a little bit more from him, I think, than just 2 tackles. Looking at Houston now, CJ Stroud, 16 for 21, 274, 3 touchdowns. Told you, in the bright lights, he's even better. He's like Josh Allen. Running, Devin Singletary led the team, 13 for 66 with a touchdown, actually considerably good. Receiving was led by Nico Collins, who had 96 and a touchdown, Brevin Jordan, who had 76 and a touchdown, and then Dalton Schultz had 37 yards and a touchdown as well. Also defensively, they just outplayed Cleveland as a unit here, generating 4 sacks and 2 interceptions to Cleveland's total donut. This team might be the Bengals a couple years ago, dude. They could go all the way. Congratulations, Houston, and I am proud of you. And up next, we got the Dolphins getting destroyed by the Chiefs. Told you, Tua can't play in cold weather. It's not a conspiracy, it's a fact. He can't do it. However, I would also like to revisit what I said, I think, last week. Mike McDaniel is not special. But he tells funny jokes, though. Oh, fucking dipshit. Anyway, looking at the Dolphins, Tua, 20 for 39, 199, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. That was an ugly pick, too. He sent that bitch cruising right over whoever's head he tried to throw it to. Run game was productive, but I don't think they were really inclined to use them since they were down majority of the game. And receiving was led by Tyreek, who had 62 and a score, but other than that, nobody did anything. Also, defensively, much like Cleveland, they didn't have a sack, they didn't have an interception, they didn't do anything. Where were you, Vic? Looking at Kansas City now, Mahomes, 23 for 41, 262, 1 touchdown. Their rushing was led by Pacheco, who had 89 yards and a score. Receiving was carried by Rashee Rice, who had 130 and a touchdown, and I guess Kelsey did have 71 yards too, but aside from those two, nobody else did shit. Then defensively, they did have an interception, 2 sacks, and Harrison Butker kicked them 14 points. It was a pretty good game by Kansas City here, and if you guys haven't heard yet, they will now have their next matchup against Buffalo in Buffalo. Josh Mahomes, round 3. Let's go. All right, now moving on, we got the Packers destroying the Cowboys again in the playoffs. And this time it was at the hands of Jordan Love, who I think might be a top 5 quarterback, dude. He is so fucking good. There are some throws too that you watch and you know for a fact it was taught by Aaron Rodgers because it looks identical to him. So anyway, looking at Green Bay first, Jordan Love, 16 for 21, 272, 3 touchdowns. If you're wondering why that sounds familiar, CJ Stroud's stats were nearly the exact same. As far as the run game goes, Aaron Jones destroyed Dallas, 118, 3 touchdowns. He's also done that to Dallas before, hasn't he? Receiving was huge. Romeo Doubs led the team with 151 yards and a touchdown, while Luke Musgrave and Dontavian Wicks also scored. And defensively, they got to Dak 4 times and picked him off twice, where one was an elite play by Jair Alexander. No matter how much I hate the guy, I have to credit him for it. And then the other was a pick 6 to Darnell Savage. This is another team that I don't think people should really be sleeping on, even though I just did last week. week. Looking at Dallas now, Dak still threw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns despite having the 2 interceptions. Tony Pollard ran for 56 yards and a touchdown. CD had 110 yards, Gallup had 103, and then Ferg had 10 receptions for 93 and 3 touchdowns. And then for the third time this week, the team on the severe losing end of the game defensively hung a donut. They did nothing. Come to think of it, only one playoff game this weekend I think was actually really good. Anyway, fuck you, Dallas. You made me look like an ass. See you next year. Now we move on to the Lions beating the Rams, and I don't think it's even close. This was the best game of the weekend by far. Peeking at Detroit, Matt Stafford went 25 for 36, 367 and 2 touchdowns, although he was definitely severely concussed at one point during the game. Dude, he was doing the fencing pose and his eyeballs were looking off into space. It was fucking scary. As far as rushing goes, Kyron Williams actually finished under 100 yards for once in his life. Receiving was basically carried by Puka, who had 9 for 181 and a touchdown, while Tutu had the other score, and Cooper Kupp did essentially nothing. Do want to say their defense did well, getting them 3 sacks, and special teams was exceptional, kicking them 11 points, keeping them in the game. But unfortunately, LA, your electric season came to an end, and I actually really hope Stafford is okay, because like I said again, that was really scary. Now, as far as the Lions go, Jared Goff was nearly perfect, 22 for 27, 277 and a touchdown. As far as running goes, neither of them were necessarily productive, but both of them did have a touchdown. In receiving was led by Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had 110 yards, followed by Josh Reynolds, who had 80, and even the recently injured Sam Laporta found success, being the only receiving touchdown of the day. Now, defensively, I do wish I could give a little bit more props to Detroit, but their secondary isn't going to get any praise from me. However, Aiden Hutchinson will, because he is a monster, and I would like to say that even though people really think the Lions were playing dirty this game, I think it was just playoff energy more than anything. It's Dan Campbell, dude. The guy doesn't want to hurt a fly. He just wants to win games, which he did, and now Detroit will be going to the divisional round to face Tampa. All right, now moving on, we got the Bills beating the Steelers, and I'm going to break this game down a little bit differently because I adamantly sat down and watched every single play. First and foremost, Pittsburgh fans, stop it with the refs. Stop. It's not our fault Miles Jack forgot how to play football, and it's not our fault that Josh Allen's a literal buffalo. We beat you. With that being said, there were tremendous plays from both sides this game. For one, let me compliment Mason Rudolph. He is not the same quarterback he was a couple years ago, not even close. This guy is tremendous under pressure, and this guy you can't get on the ground. He had that great play in the third quarter where he saved a drive by throwing it to George Pickens. He had multiple plays where he had defenders and linemen on him, but he got away from it and got the ball out. He looked like a good quarterback. Also, defensively, I would like to compliment you guys because even though you did severely miss TJ Watt and you did miss Joey Porter after he got hurt, you guys put the clamps on in the second half. Multiple stops, you got to Josh multiple times, but your injuries and stupid mistakes without a doubt did hurt you. Now, if you look at the Bills, playoff Josh, he is a very real thing. I don't know how to explain it, but you put pressure on the guy and he turns into a cyborg. 21 for 30, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, 74 rushing yards, and a 56-yard rushing touchdown. On top of that, the run game with James Cook was incredible. He got us multiple first downs when we needed it, and he didn't fumble the ball one time. Now, receiving, nobody necessarily had a huge day, but multiple people made huge plays. Josh had that huge scramble in the third that ended up going to Stephon Diggs for a first down, which saved the game. You had both touchdowns from each tight end. You had Khalil Shakir getting a touchdown off of something which we thought was just a first down. Everybody had a role. However, defensively, I'm not as comfortable as I want to be. We had more injuries. We lost Taron Johnson, where we saw Mason Rudolph annihilate Cam Lewis the entire game. We lost Terrell Bernard, one of our linebackers. Like, we can't get away from these injuries, but I will say, on the last series of the game, Von Miller showed flashes. He had 2 pressures, so maybe he's coming back to earth. And man, do we ever need that, because in just 5 days from now, we got the Chiefs at home for round 3. This is the year, man. This is the fucking year. And the last game we got is Philly getting sent to the Shadow Realm by the Bucks. I wish I had the balls to pick Tampa Bay this game. I really wish I would have, because it would have been even more sweet. Then I really could have said I told you so, but I can still say I told you so, because Philly is ass! Ass! Fucking ass! This is when having one of the worst, most unlikable coaches ever in one of the loudest fan bases on earth can really come back to haunt you. Now, I do feel for Jalen Hurts and I feel for Devontae Smith, because Devontae lit it up for 8 receptions on 148 yards, and Jalen Hurts literally just played the game that he was given, and people are giving him a lot of hell for it. But the rest of the team, no, I'm sorry. I don't have sympathy for you. And I also don't really have an answer as to what really went wrong, other than, missing AJ Brown and missing a couple couple other players, but it's not like you guys just did bad this week. It's been literally 2 months. Now you guys got a full 8 months to think about it. Looking at the Bucks now, Baker Mayfield, 22 for 36, 337, 3 touchdowns. He was a dog. I mean, I actually knew when I saw him running out of the tunnel ripping a smelling salt, the Eagles were absolutely fucked. As far as the run game goes, Rachaad White did decent. Receiving was led by Cade Otton, who had 8 for 89, while David Moore and Trey Palmer scored, as well as Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans, I think, should have had a touchdown, but he had another ugly drop, which he seems to have, even though I think he's one of the greatest receivers in the history of the game. He'll drop an obvious pass like once every 3 games. Also, defensively, Tampa Bay was great with their defensive line. I mean, they didn't allow any rushing. They got to Jalen Hurts 3 different times, but their secondary, as I kind of was talking about in the prediction, they got waxed. That I do fear for Tampa going into the next week, but we don't got to worry about that for another 5 days. And for right now, I think all Buccaneer fans should be patting themselves on the back because you did America a favor. You guys are America's team this week. And that is going to be it, ladies and gentlemen, for my wildcard weekend reactions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, you already know what to do to show support. Comment, like, subscribe, turn that bell on. I try to post every single weekday. But with everything I just said, I'm going to get this edited so you guys can watch it on time and I can get packing for Denver. Predictions should be out tomorrow. Probably no video on Thursday, vlog on Friday. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.